Parallel People, Chapter 1, Backstory. I sat on my porch smoking a blunt with a cup of freshly made cold brew, overlooking the tropical forests of Springfield, Massachusetts. The trees themselves weren't tropical, but there was an overabundance of lushness and greenery. I miss the days of my youth when the world wasn't so damn hot. The world was dying in its current form. The Federation was denying climate change, and the Earth had heated up 5 degrees Celsius in the past 50 years alone. My home state of Massachusetts was mostly spared from the climate disaster, but we too had our hardships. Winters were brutally cold and snowy, and the summers were the polar opposite. And as I turned on the radio, NPR specifically, I heard the worst yet expected news of the day. The President of the United Kingdom has vowed to use nuclear weapons if India won't agree to their peace accords. Wilson has given Premier Deepak 48 hours to agree or suffer the consequences of his inaction. Tensions had been heating up between the world leaders, and I needed to jump out of this reality quickly. And I quickly finished the blunt and brew, and I walked back into my large garage. I had been working in the lab earlier that day trying to figure out what to do with the ship's flux inhibitor. It wasn't the inhibitor itself, it was the damn hydro membrane. And in a moment of frustration, I slammed the desk. And as that happened, the light that I was using to see my very confusing work moved ever so slightly, and the beam of light hit the gray and shimmering synthetic hydro membrane, and it worked. And the light hit the membrane and refracted into impossible colors and shapes, colors I'd never seen in my life, or this universe. My God, it worked! I can't believe it worked! Okay, so now I had to carefully extract the temporal fields and splay them into the ship's GPS. This was going to take some work. So I carefully moved the light away from the hydromembrane, and the light stopped the rainbow refraction, and the membrane returned to its gray, flat, glossy state. Okay, Charles, be very careful. You need the hands of a surgeon for this part. And then I carefully unlocked the casing the membrane was in and screwed the metal and restraints and screws loose. Click! Okay, the easy part was done. Now it was time to find the way to get the membrane free and clear of its metal holster. And then my hands started to shake uncontrollably. And I backed off, trying to take the membrane out, as this membrane was breakthrough for my tenure as a Metaphysical Scientist at MIT. This required precision and certain precautions, as the world only had 47 hours to go. I needed a break from this, so I went out of my garage into my classy New England wooden bungalow. The cedar shingles and baby blue trim around the ancient windows was something I'd miss dearly. This house had been passed down from my great-grandfather, and he had built it with his bare hands back in the 1970s. It had its fair share of aches and pains, but it was ultimately mine, and the ornate brass doorknob was turned, and I entered my kitchen. The wooden floors creaked as I stepped into them, and I turned on my gas stove. It was time for a calming cup of herbal peppermint tea. The blue terracotta tea kettle was on the stovetop, and I sat down on the wicker chair at my table. Then my emotions came bubbling up, and shortly after, the tears started to flow. Oh dear Lord, the people that will die because of humanity. We truly are our own worst enemies. Weesh! Okay, it was tea time, and I got out a porcelain mug that read, "Bless this mess." Okay, I have to admit that is kind of funny. And I chuckled to myself as I poured the water into the mug and steeped the tea bag. And then I took a sip, and immediately my nerves started to calm down. Okay, it's time to get back to work. And it was back to the garage for me.